besides saying I should agree. But that's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a real big problem. That's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a real big problem. Left my girl home, now I'm rolling on my own. No shame that I pre-game, secrets how to save. That's just how I do, and my friends do. But now I'm clubbing like a
people. Hey, Jeff Grant.
Hey, Babz. Good morning.
Good morning, my dear.
Oh, it's so good to see you again.
I know. I feel like I haven't seen you in a minute.
Well, because sometimes these months have 5 Fridays, so it's actually 3 weeks in between I see you instead of 2.
Hey.
Yeah.
So we're doing our show today.
Yep.
Before we get to our guest, let's talk about a few things. Let's say hello to everyone. Let's say hello to our loved ones.
Oh, yeah.
Lynn Springer, my love.
And Andrew Kaplan, both our loves. And our sponsor, who we love desperately.
And we are grateful to the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven.
Now more than ever.
Thank you very much for making this show possible.
Yeah.
So our guest today is David Garlock, criminal justice advocate, featured in the movie Just Mercy.
He's got a fantastic story, and
I can't wait to unpack it.
He was our guest on the White Collar Support Group phone call 2 weeks ago, and he brought everybody to tears. It was amazing. So I can't wait for him to tell the story on the
I'm
air.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So we got some things coming up. Number one, free prison phone calls press conference next Thursday at noon at the LOB at the Capitol.
It's either at the Capitol or at the LOB. We had a conference call, Zoom call yesterday. And Josh Elliott and Bianca Tylek and Tahiba Bain and Venice Michelson and everyone were on that call, and a lot of other people, and decided to do the press conference next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And that bill, the free prison phone calls bill, is being championed in the Assembly by Josh Elliott and in the Senate by Gary Winfield.
Okay.
So we're behind that 100%, and I will be at that press conference and lending support.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Jackie, you and Jackie Povari are speaking at Albertus Magnus College on March 23rd.
We are.
Which we got time to keep plugging that, but I just want people to know.
Yeah, for sure. We're very grateful to Albertus Magnus, and we're looking for other gigs.
And on April 13th, the 200th White Collar Support Group meeting is celebrating its 200th meeting.
200 meetings. Can you imagine when we started that?
It's like its own mini-series.
Yeah, I know. We started that like 4 years ago now. I can't believe it. And I heard a rumor. When I hear a rumor, it's usually true, that a reporter is going to be doing an article on that. So
good.
And I'm hoping to have her on the show in the fall. So she's got her own incredible story, Connecticut story. So
good.
I won't let that out of the bag until.
Good. And Diane Serapina.
She's the program director for criminal justice for the Tao Foundation.
Yes.
And she's got an article in the Connecticut Mirror this morning on how far we've come on youth justice and how far we have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a shout out to her. It's a great article, very thorough. And so if you can find it online, I guess if you don't subscribe to Connecticut Mirror, just Google Diane Serapina and Connecticut Mirror. And I have one more thing that's not on your list, because I do want to keep making sure that the public knows about Charlie Grady and the Connecticut Hall of Change.
Yes.
That's a big initiative that's happening in the state, and whoever the inaugural inductees are, when they're chosen, 8 of them as inaugural inductees, they will be here en masse on April 17th, and a week before is the actual ceremony, and Charlie will be here in the studio with them. So we love Charlie, and he'll be here again, and we'll be posting all of that.
Cool.
Yep. So there's a lot of stuff.
Yes. Oh, for Black History Month, I'm over at the University of New Haven with the Tao people doing critical perspectives on drugs, media, policy, and prevention. So that's coming up February 25th, 1 o'clock over there.
I know. I posted it.
You did.
I did. Of course.
Of course you did.
Of
course you did.
Babz Rolls Ivy came up on my Google alerts, and I post.
All right. So we've got a wonderful guest this morning, which I'm excited to talk to David R. Garlock. He's a successful returning citizen, reentry professional, and criminal justice reform advocate. David and his brother received 25-year sentences in Alabama after taking the life of their abuser. He's a client. They were clients of Equal Justice Initiative. He was released on parole in 2013 after serving more than 13 years and pursuing several educational opportunities while incarcerated. He subsequently obtained his bachelor's degree from Eastern University and is now the Lancaster Program Director for New Persons Ministry, a reentry program for men who have committed sex offenses and other returning citizens. He is also co-chair of the Lancaster County Reentry Coalition, a member of the Pennsylvania Reentry Council, a statewide coalition of county reentry organizations, and a healing communities facilitator. And he's appeared in the movie, the new movie, Just Mercy.
Yeah, about his mentor, Brian Stevenson. Is he on the line yet?
Yes, he is here, and like so many other folks, he's a member of the 2019 Just Leadership USA Leading with Conviction cohort. Hi, David.
Hi, how y'all doing?
How y'all doing?
Hey, this is little Alabama coming out, huh?
Well, we're doing just fine. How you? Listen, my roots are very Southern.
Well, that's good. Maybe we'll just all be talking Southern after the show then.
So how are you? Jeff and I were talking about your connection to the Just Mercy movie, because I didn't know the connection. I was just like, I thought maybe you were one of the attorneys or one of the whatever, but you were actually physically presently in the movie.
Yes, I was. So I got a call from Brian Stevenson in 2018, and one thing I've been trying to do is a speaking engagement with him. And so he had texted me, and he's like, hey, I got this amazing opportunity for you, so I'm thinking we're going to do a speaking engagement. And so when we talked, he's like, hey, do you want to be in a movie? I'm thinking, is that actually a question I have to ask somebody? Like, just sign me up, tell me where I need to be, and I'll be there.
Mm-hmm. But you have a connection to him. You have a relationship with him already, though, right? Because you had a case, and they picked it up.
They actually didn't pick up our case, because in Alabama you only have like a year or 2 years to appeal your sentence. So a friend of mine in Kilby Correctional Facility connected me with them, and they wish that they could have done more for us as far as the type of sentence that we received, because in Alabama it's not like other states. Other states have actual they actually have the lawyers in a group where this is where you're working. In Alabama, they don't have that. They have court appointed. So every lawyer in Alabama has to do so many court appointed trials a year.
No matter what firm you're with, no matter what, like every attorney in Alabama has to do that?
Yep.
Okay.
So David, why don't you lead us back from the beginning of your story as to how you wound up in prison and what was going on? Because we know that you and your brother were in an abusive relationship. Maybe you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was 9. My brother was kicked out of the house when he was 13, and he was living on the streets and went to this receiving home, which was in essence a group home. And this gentleman had just gotten out of prison in North Carolina, moved to Seattle, Washington, befriended the person that was running this home, and started sexually abusing my brother. And a couple months later, forced him to move in with him. Then they had the idea to go down to California, where my mom had moved after the divorce and got remarried, and brought my mom and stepdad back up to Washington. And this whole process was just to have contact with me and begin sexually abusing me. So the sexual abuse with me began January 1st of 1991. And this went on for 8 years. Towards the end of the abuse, it became more physical. This gentleman had tried to kill my brother and me numerous times. And so we made an irrational decision and thought the only way out of this situation was to take his life. So we took his life in June of 1999, and 4 months later we were arrested. And that 4-month period was just full of drugs and alcohol and just doing everything to take my mind off the fact that I had taken somebody's life.
And how old were you, David?
When I was 19 and a half when the murder happened, and I just turned 20 when I was arrested. And here I am sitting in the Walker County Jail in Alabama thinking I'm going to get the death penalty. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And that weekend was the hardest time of my life. So here I am crying myself to sleep and just crying the whole time because I don't know what's going to happen. And November 1st, I was taken over to the city jail for more questioning. I was put in this interrogation room for 7 hours. So if you're in a room by yourself for 7 hours, you have a lot of time to think. So I was thinking about everything that happened, and I finally decided to confess to the crime. And after I confessed, the detective was taking me back to the county jail, and I'm asking him about what type of sentence I'm going to get. I'm going to get the death penalty or life without, because we all know that down south in the Bible Belt, they really believe in the death penalty and life without parole. So that's what I was thinking. But as I'm asking him what type of sentence I'm going to get, he turns to me and he asks me, do I believe in God? I'm thinking, I'm not studying God right now. What's going to happen to me? But he was very persistent about this. And I finally said, yes, I believe in God. He's like, you need to seek him now. So really, that was one of the main points that turned my whole life and my whole trajectory around, because I began to think about taking advantage of every opportunity that came before me while I was incarcerated. So I was able to get my GED in the county jail. Then we pled out to 25-year sentences because, as I said, we had court-appointed lawyers that really didn't want to do anything for us. And then when we went to prison, I took advantage of opportunities there. I was able to get a drafting trade through the community college that was coming into one of the prisons. There was a theology class offered through an unaccredited college out of Georgia. So I was able to get a master's of theology, and everything I was doing was I wanted to be a better David Garlock when I got out of prison than when I went in. And something, one of my lines in the movie is that my court-appointed lawyer told me that with the 25-year sentence, if I had to do all 25 years, I'd still be 45 when I got out. And so just having that thought process that, okay, I am going to get out of prison at some point. I don't know when, but I want to be a different individual. And so I got out in 2013. And 9 months after I got out, I was able to get my parole transferred from Alabama to Pennsylvania. And typically this takes 6 months to a year, if not longer. And it happened in 3 weeks. And it was 4 days before school started. And so it was this amazing opportunity of God just opening these doors.
So talk a little bit about, where is your family in all of this? What happens to your brother? And are y'all still connected? And is he on a different path? Or like, talk a little bit about how did this happen to you all? Like, how does where is your family? Where is the community for you? Where are all those kinds of things? Were you just out there, you two by yourselves?
My brother was actually forced to live with this guy, and my mom and stepdad were weren't doing well in California, and so they had the opportunity to move in with this gentleman, and they took that opportunity. When my brother and I were arrested, our mom wrote us, and she kind of thought things were going on, but she never knew exactly, because when the abuse started with us, we were told that if we told anybody, this person would kill my brother and me and all of our family members.
Mm-hmm.
So we had all this fear because we already knew he had just gotten out of prison. So we knew that he had potential to do this and that he had connections. So there was a lot of fear there.
Okay.
And with the abuse, there were times where I would tell my dad that I didn't want to go over there, but he would still have me go over to see my mom, and that's when the abuse would happen.
Okay. And so your mother's position is she had no awareness of what was going on.
No.
Okay. And so after you told her, after she finds out what is going on, what happens?
I mean, she didn't find out until we were actually incarcerated.
Okay. So,
so David, so what was the move from Seattle, where you were all living, to Alabama? How'd you wind up in Alabama?
Well, my dad and I had moved down to California, and then the gentleman forced me to move out with them to Louisiana, and then we went from Louisiana to Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you do how much time do you do? You do quite a bit of time. 13 years?
I served 13 and a half years.
Okay. And so you do 13 years, you get out, and you have a sense of what? What are you thinking when you get out?
I mean, my main process as far as when I was getting out was getting a job and then preparing to go to college at Eastern University. And so I was actually able to work 2 jobs when I got out and saved up money and was able to come up to Pennsylvania and start school in January of 2014. And what an amazing thing as far as that, too, was when I was able to come into Eastern, I walked into school with 67 credits from stuff that I was able to do while I was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian Stevenson, he not only handled the parole applications for you and your brother, but he helped you get into college. Is that right?
Yeah, because that was the question I was asking you. Like, how did you? That was my initial question. To circle back to these questions, was how did the relationship develop between you and Brian Stevenson? Because if he didn't pick up that case, like, how did you all become connected?
I mean, he started working with us as far as the parole and then as far as reentry. So when both my brother and I were released, we went through Equal Justice Initiative reentry program.
Okay.
And I think it was the second or third visit that Brian and I had that he started telling me about Eastern University, and I was really intrigued with it. And then when I got paperwork from them saying that they had a street ministry and a prison ministry, I was sold. I'm like, okay, I want to go. And so I had received contact from Eastern, from the dean of students, and so I had a constant contact with them until I was released. And then after I was released, I took the SATs, applied, and was accepted. And so one thing that was kind of funny as far as the SATs was when I got out of prison, I was expecting to have this amazing, wonderful, awesome birthday as my first one out. But I spent it that morning taking the SATs, and then I had to work that night. So it wasn't the birthday party type thing that I was really expecting. But
so did you know what you wanted to study when you started applying to school? Like when you applied to Eastern, did you know, okay, I've done all these other courses, I'm starting to figure out what it is I want to do with my life?
Well, I mean, when I first came up to Eastern, I really didn't even have the idea or thought process as far as working in criminal justice reform.
Mm-hmm.
I initially wanted to open up a home for kids and teens to get them off the street. But, when I was up at Eastern and just some of the contacts I had there really changed my thought process and my mind. And, I mean, when you're around Brian Stevenson and you're hearing him talk about changing the narrative, being proximate, all this stuff, it becomes part of you. And so I was able to do an individualized major where I studied urban studies, criminal justice, and social work all combined.
Okay.
So that's really what prepared me for the work that I am doing now in the criminal justice reform field.
Okay. So talk a little bit about that work that you're doing now, and then tell us a little bit about because we see so many people come on this show from the Just Leadership USA, leading with conviction. Like that seems to have had such a great impact on a population of folks. Immediate effect on how folks come out and live their lives and get to do this work as a career path.
Yeah, so the work I do now is I'm the program director of New Person Ministries in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And we are a Christian reentry home, and about 95% of the people that we deal with are individuals who have committed sex offenses. So people always ask me, how is there a way that you could do the work that you do now, knowing that you were sexually and physically abused and you took the person's life? And I mean, it goes back to really the name of our ministry, which is New Persons Ministry. And it comes from 2 Corinthians 5:17. That says, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. The old things will pass away and all things will become new. And that's really how I look at the men. I look at them not as what they've done, but as far as who they are sitting in front of me. And, and I tell them, I'm like, I don't define you by whatever crime you committed. I define you by what you do today and what you do tomorrow. And it's an amazing opportunity for me to go out into the community and help educate employers and other people about individuals who have committed sex offenses, because a lot of times society has the thought process that these men and women who have these offenses are monsters and they can never change. But that's not true.
Well, I can understand, Dave, that you have a certain amount of credibility or street cred having been on the other side of that abuse. But how do you deal with it personally? I mean, do you have supervision? Are you in therapy? I mean, you must absorb a lot of emotional trauma, and these wounds must get ripped open. What do you do about it?
I mean, I have gone through stuff like that, but it's about just my relationship with God. And a lot of that began while I was in prison, and reading about the stuff that I experienced, and understanding that I wasn't the person who was to be blamed, because people who have been abused blame themselves. So really that is where a lot of the transition and healing has come. And when I'm able to work with the men, it continues to allow me to heal all the time because of that conversation, because of the grace and the forgiveness that I've experienced. And when I work with them, I'm actually able to help them forgive themselves. And so it's a lot about restorative justice too.
So how is your brother doing? And what is your relationship like with your mother and stepfather?
While I was incarcerated, my mom, my dad, my grandma, my sister all passed away. So really my brother and I are the only immediate family that we have. And I mean, we talk a little bit here and there. He's doing really well as far as job-wise. He's been working at the same place for 9 years. He's the manager there. Him and his fiance just had a child about 7 or 8 months ago, and she's adorable.
So he is not doing this work. He is not doing the kind of work that you're doing. He is has moved toward a less profile around these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not in the work that I am. And so, I mean, he's been able to do great in the work that he is doing.
Okay, so you are connected to it. The work that you do comes out of ministry, and so do you see people solely in prison, or do you see them when they come out of prison? Talk a little bit about how you do the work that you do.
Well, I mean, I don't actually have the access with the people that are in prison. We have admin who does the conversations there, and I actually work with them when they come out.
Oh,
So I do
okay.
a lot of I do the case management with them while
Mm-hmm.
they're in our program. They're typically in our program 3 to 4 months. So when they come out, I do an orientation with them. I find out what they have as far as if they have IDs, they have social security cards, birth certificates, the things that are necessary for them to obtain employment. And then we begin to see what type of work they've done in the past, create resumes, and begin the process of getting them a job. And so one thing I've been able to do is I've been able to create relationships with employers there in Lancaster where I've actually gone in and begin to educate them as far as the population we work with, so they understand that these individuals aren't what society says they are, and to begin to look at them in a perspective as new people, and to look at them in a way that God and Christ would look at them.
So do you work with other community organizations around getting folks what they need? Like if there's mental health issues, do you refer? Like who are your partners, and do you work in partner with other organizations um, in your area to do this work?
I mean, we definitely work with Lancaster County Ranger Coalition, so it's a county coalition that has about 40 some organizations involved with it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where we're able to get them the mental health help that they need. They're able to get employment help if I can't provide that to them. They have different resources where they can help with housing. There's some places that have vouchers where they can join these programs, and the program will pay for their deposit as long as they're in their program. So there's a lot of support in Lancaster.
Oh, okay. So what is the age range of folks that you're seeing? Do you see just men, or do you see men and women?
Our program is just set up for men because
Okay.
we actually have a house where they reside for that 3 to 4 month period.
Mm-hmm.
And the age range, it varies. You know, we've had people in there who are 20 all the way up to people who are 69, 70. So it varies.
Okay. And so these are people that are sex offenders, or these are people who are in general population. Like, how do you distinguish between who gets into your program and who doesn't?
I mean, we really don't have anything that says somebody can't come into our program. Our program is open to anybody who is needing a place to go.
Oh, okay.
There's a process that they do as far as application and stuff like that. But a lot of the people, the person that founded our organization saw that there was a need for people who've committed sex offenses, because in Pennsylvania, there's only 4 programs, and at one time there's only 37 beds open for people who have committed sex offenses. So there is definitely a need for that, and not only in Pennsylvania but nationwide, you know. And that's why organizations like NARSAL and One Standard of Justice up there in Connecticut, these are programs and situations and organizations that are needed to get this information out there, where we can receive the help, where we can provide the support and assistance to these men and women.
So David, is this how you see your calling now, working specifically with men who've been convicted of sexual offenses, or is it more generalized and this just happens to be what you're doing right now, and you have a vision where you want to head with your career and your calling?
I think it's more generalized, you know, because of the experience I've had as far as being incarcerated and the different types of individuals I've dealt with why I've been incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And the work that I'm doing is, so my full-time job is working with this population. But as you mentioned, I'm the co-chair of the Lancaster County Reentry Coalition. I'm involved with the Pennsylvania Reentry Council. So my main goal is to be involved with criminal justice reform, just being able to help pave a way for the next man and woman that is getting out of prison, and to provide that support, to provide that care. We all know the old saying, the African proverb that says, it takes a village to raise a child. My spin on that is it takes a village to allow a returning citizen to be successful. So it's important that we set up that village. That village involves the person's family. It involves the community that they're in. It involves employers, and it involves a faith community who's going to walk alongside this individual and tell them that they believe in them, that they're going to walk with them, and that they can do whatever they put their mind to.
Do you find it helpful that you are a survivor of childhood sexual assault, and that the men that you're dealing with are perpetrators of those kinds of crimes? What is that like when you reveal that, or do you reveal that? Like, do you lead with that? Do you let them know that, this is your story? And I mean, how much of your story comes into how do you handle and work with people?
Well, I mean, it's something that I'm very open with, because I want them to understand where I'm coming from. And when you think about people who have committed sex offenses, 30 to 70% of them have actually been abused themselves. So really it's about working with them, providing healing, understanding their own trauma, and seeing where they're coming from. And that's why I look at my job as more restorative justice, because a lot of the men that I work with might never have that opportunity to have an actual conversation with their victim. So in essence, I become their victim by proxy, and I'm able to help them with that healing and to understand why they did what they did, and to be able to be that whole person again. Because a lot of these men, they do what they learn. And we all know that saying where hurt people hurt people. And so they've never been able to have that ability to release that hurt, to release that pain. And so I try to help them release that, and where they can understand the trauma that they experienced themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is not a popular, I don't know how popular this is, but somebody has to do this work. And so you seem to be called and tasked with doing it.
Yeah. How you find the climate in Pennsylvania? I know there's a lot of reform going on in Pennsylvania, and John Wetzel's your superintendent of corrections out there, and he's like our commissioner of corrections here in Connecticut, very progressive, and there's a lot of good work going on in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but you're somewhere in the middle of the state. So how do you find the empathy and compassion, and are you getting the resources you need, and how is it working in Pennsylvania?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of change happening in Pennsylvania. I see it all the time being a member of the Pennsylvania Reentry Council, and I'm able to see what's happening in other counties. But with the population I work with, I mean, there definitely has to be more resources, more people getting involved. And that's really why I love opportunities like this to share my story, where people hear about it and hear the stories of the men that we work with, to see that these are normal men. These are not monsters. They are not some mythical creature, and that they are individuals who need help. And this population, the recidivism rate for them is 15%. That's as far as going back to prison. But if you talk about them committing another sex offense, it's 1.5 to 5.5%. So these are things that we have to do. We have to educate the public so they can understand the situation and people we're dealing with. We have an amazing organization here in Pennsylvania called PARSA, which is an affiliate of NARSAW, and the woman that runs it, Teresa Robertson, I'm connected with, and we're doing a lot of work through Pennsylvania Reentry Council to educate in the council as far as this population and trying to get help, trying to get assistance. There's also 5 different cases right now that are in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that will have an effect as far as the registry and how these individuals are treated who are on the registry.
How do you find that your Just Leadership USA cohort fellows, how do you find that they relate to this kind of work? Because most of them are doing more poverty related, racial injustice related work, urban work. And how do you find they relate to this?
Well, I mean, our cohort is amazing. Leading with Conviction 2019 cohort was amazing. We called ourselves unicorns because each one of us is doing individual amazing work, but when we come together, it's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And they love the work that I'm doing because of the closeness I've had to this situation and how I've taken this harm and this hurt that I experienced and then using it to help other people receive that same healing, And it goes back to 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4, where it says that God is God of all comforts and tender mercies, and he comforts us so we can comfort others. And that's the way I look at it. And so many of the people are like, they talk about me like I'm this onion that has so many different layers, but these layers are what allows me to help so many different types of people because of those experiences. And they all support what I do. They love it. We also have another cohort member, Guy Hamilton Smith, who is a gentleman who's in the same type of work, and he does amazing stuff. He's in Kentucky, and just the work he does and the drive and the passion he has is incredible.
So talk a little bit about David the man and how your life looks like. I know you're married. And how long have you been married? And do you have kids? Like, tell us about who you are as a human being, as a person.
Well, I have an amazing wife. Her name's Jane. We've been married. August 15th will be 5 years.
Oh, happy anniversary!
She's amazing. And her family is very supportive and loving, and they treat me as their own child, which is amazing. We have an amazing church family, and both of us are able to serve there. And the way that they've received us and loved on us has been amazing. And
what's your church? What's your denomination?
It's non-denominational, and the church is Freedom Life Church.
Mm-hmm.
We have one church, but 4 locations, and the location we go to, our pastors are amazing, and it's kind of crazy because everything goes back to like when I was a child, and the connections have gone there. So when people talk about 6 degrees of separation, a lot of stuff in my life is like half a degree of separation, but it's amazing. We do not have kids right now, but we are expecting to have some, and we are planning on it.
Well, keep us posted on that front. So how do you take care of yourself, David? Like, because I mean, this is no easy work. How do you take care of yourself? Hearing these stories of some of these men, knowing what they've done, standing in the place of forgiveness, and really trying to sort of say to the world that these people are not monsters, that they are, in fact, our brothers and sisters who live amongst us, and that we have to make way for them to be in community with us. How do you take care of yourself doing this work?
Well, one thing that I definitely have to do is when I leave work, I have to leave work at work. Because, I mean, it would be easy for me to bring it home and bring the stories I hear home. And so really just having that disconnect, because anytime you deal with social work, you deal with people in hospitals, stuff like that, you have to have that separation. If you don't, you're going to burn out. And so really that's one of the key things there. I love to do is I love to write. And so that's definitely something I use as an outlet to just have that separation, and just spending time with my wife at the end of the day, just relaxing, and just that's something that I always look forward to, and it's very calming, and just allows me to be able to put everything from the day on the back burner and just take care of what needs to be taken care of at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but David, as this movie was rolling out, and so of course I'm sure everything is amplified in the community, in your community. I don't know if it was picked up in local papers there. There were premieres. Did you get to attend a premiere, say in New York? And how was that experience? And now, and did you feel exposed? I mean, did you feel much more of a spotlight upon you and your story, and how'd you handle that?
We weren't able to attend any of the premieres in New York City because of time frame and everything. We were able to attend the Philadelphia Film Festival had a premiere here, and so my wife and I were able to attend that with some of Brian's family. And I was also able to attend another premiere in Delaware because that's where Brian's from. Mm-hmm. And so that was definitely an awesome experience to be invited in there. Now, the aspect of my story being amplified, I mean, I love that aspect, And the thing is, it's not really just about me. It's about getting the story out there. And that's the thing I love about this movie, that it's getting criminal justice reform out there. This movie is going to make people angry. It's going to make them frustrated. It's going to make them mad. But then they're going to say, what can I do to get involved? And that's really the main thing about this movie. Brian Stevenson wants people to ask the question, how can I get involved? How can I be proximate? And what can I do to change the narrative? And that's really what it's about. And, I mean, was it an awesome experience, and was it cool to get aspects of my story out there? Yes. But in the end, it's not about that. It's about changing the narrative. It's about getting people involved and seeing how they can partner with us to bring about the criminal justice reform, how we can do what Just Leadership USA talks about, half by 30-30, and how we can go ahead and help men and women re-enter society and be successful, because there's so many different barriers that these men and women have. And so if we're able to break down those barriers, if we're able to have men and women who have seen this movie, who have read Just Mercy, who have now been seeing what it's like for people to return, they now are going to say, okay, how can we be involved? How can we help? That's what it's all about.
I just finished the book the early part of the fall. It took me a very long time to finish the book because it's mind-blowing, and it's frustrating that in this day and age that we are dealing with these kinds of just, I don't even know if corruption is the right word. Like, it's a whole different kind of thing. And you read the book and you're like, I cannot believe this is happening to people. And then you go back and you read some more and you're like, oh my God, it is still happening. It's still happening. I mean, I was proud to read the book. I was grateful to read the book, but I was incredibly frustrated reading the book. I haven't seen the film yet. That's on my to-do list to go see it. It's still in the theaters now, and has gotten really good reviews all the way around. And I don't know if it's got some Oscar buzz to it yet, but it is a film that they are trying to get into the schools. They're trying to get into different places. I think they're even trying to show it in some of the prisons, so that people can see some of this. So,
yeah, they've done a good job on the criminal justice front.
Yeah.
David, have you been down to the Legacy Museum?
Yeah, my wife and I were able to go down last year. EGI had their 30th anniversary in April, so we were able to go down there and go to the Legacy Museum and also the National Peace Museum. And it was amazing, just walking through the museums and just seeing the impact of our forefathers and what they did and how they were treating African Americans and lynching them, and how we went from slavery to the new Jim Crow and to mass incarceration. And the Legacy Museum is definitely a smaller museum, but one thing my wife was talking to me afterwards was she loves museums and stuff like that, and she was talking about how they were so small, but probably some of the most powerful museums she's ever been in. And she, in the Legacy Museum, there's actually some letters from inmates and everything, and she was reading some and had to stop reading them because she started thinking about what it would be like if she was receiving letters from me.
That's very powerful.
And which is the museum with the hanging plaques?
With the lynching museum?
The lynching museum.
Yeah, that's the lynching museum, and that's the one. It's a memorial for peace and justice, and that's about a mile away from EJI's office. And so the Legacy Museum is actually on the back of EJI's office, and it's very powerful. And what that does is it walks you through from slavery to new Jim Crow to mass incarceration, and just the way that America never released African Americans. They just changed the way that slavery was named and called.
And still.
So we so appreciate having you on, David. This has been quite insightful. Do you want to leave us with some, with some pearls of wisdom that you've learned along the way? Do you want to leave us with some encouragement? Do you want to speak specifically to some folks who might be find themselves in a situation or don't know what to do, or if you want to leave us with some parting words?
I'd say really one of the main things is that we definitely have to change the narrative, and people who have been incarcerated or involved with the justice system, we are the catalyst to this. We are the people who are able to change that narrative, because when we stop labeling ourselves as a felon or an ex-con or any of these negative labels, that's when we're able to help society begin to change that label too. I definitely say that it's imperative that people learn about these situations themselves. Don't take what media says about people who have been incarcerated, and really, especially when you deal with people who have committed sex offenses. There's such a negative view of this population, and there's always articles in the paper talking about these individuals were arrested because of this or that, but they aren't really being arrested for new crimes. They're being arrested for the punishment that is inflicted on them because of the registry. And then the last thing I'd probably talk about too, and want people to really focus on, is that we have to get away from this thought process that we want to help nonviolent offenders compared to violent offenders. Because a lot of times somebody who is labeled a violent offender, it could be just one single event or one moment in time that caused them to act out violently, and now they're labeled as this violent offender for the rest of their life. Society would consider me a murderer and a violent offender because my brother and I took the life of this man who sexually and physically abused us for years. When people hear my story, they understand why we did what we did, and they're able to look at me differently. but let's not just focus on violent versus nonviolent.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for your time today, David. I really feel like I've heard a word today.
Yeah, we'll be thinking about you and praying for you and your brother and your whole family. How do people get in touch with you, David?
I do a lot of public speaking, so I'm able to speak in universities, churches, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants me to come speak at their conference or university, they can reach me at the Garlock, Garlock, speaker, SPEAKER @gmail.com. And if they have stuff where they want to find more about the work that I'm doing, they can reach me at my work email, which is thegarlocknpm, and they can reach me on Twitter and Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David. It has been a real pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah, thanks, David.
All right. So we wish you well, and we hope to hear back from you soon. And let us know when the babies arrive.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of the day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. I'll see you on Twitter in a few minutes.
All right, Jeff Grant. We've done another show for the new year.
We have.
Thank you to Lynn Springer, as always.
And Andrew Kaplan.
And the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven.
Now more than ever.
So we will be back February 21st with guest Larry Levine.
This is going to be a wild show.
Oh,
Larry,
Lord have mercy.
No, Larry is by far the most outspoken, wackiest, wildest
Hold
guy.
on to your wigs, ladies and gentlemen.
In fact, he's been invited on to the Howard Stern show.
Mm.
So we come before Howard Stern, but I spoke to Larry last night, and I told him that this is live broadcast, so he's got to tone it down.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. Well, I've got the controls over here. I know how to, plus Harry's got my back, so we know how to shut it down.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, it will.
Thanks, Jeff Grant.
Thank you, Babz. Love you, Babz.
Love you, too. And Harry Drost, thank you so much. We're on our way out.
Thanks, Harry.